Hello, and welcome our next speaker, Gopi Ramamoorthy. He is a technology leader, strategic thinker, and problem solver. He has extensive experience in engineering, cybersecurity, and compliance. At Cemetery Systems, Gopi is leading security and compliance engineering and automation and bringing his cybersecurity and compliance skills and vision to shape the product. He is also managing external compliance certifications. Welcome, Gopi.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, before I start, I'd like to thank you. It's a wonderful Saturday afternoon outside, but please, I really thank you all for coming here, spending your Saturday afternoon here. Second, BSides volunteer-run organization. There are a lot of volunteers putting this show together. Big thanks to volunteers. The third important thing is I have 60 slides to go through, but only 20 of them important. So remaining 40 slides, you can check your phone, mail, your evening plans, and so on. Don't worry. Okay, the agenda looks long. Again, don't worry. First, I'll start with you what you need to know before we get into the topic. And then I'll take you through the journey. This is a 5-day course, but I'm trying to give you in 50 minutes. A little bit about me. I've been in the industry for 15 years, handled security in fintech for 10 years, close to 10 years, and in healthcare for 5 years. And after all the practice, I'm building up data security product at Cemetery Systems. Disclaimer, I'm a cybersecurity professional with more certifications. I'm not a lawyer. The second important thing is I'm going to refer multiple laws here, regulations here. The moment I prepared this slide and then down the line when you refer this, the laws or regulations might have changed. So please check what is current. And the third important thing is I looked at, I read a lot of books. I looked at websites, and my sincere thanks to all of them. First of all, we need to know why this is important, right? You're going to spend 50 minutes, and you need to have some data points to convince yourself why this topic is important. So I'm listing a list of a set of organizations here. You might have used them. You might be a customer for them. And they all have a decent sized security teams. And they also go through multiple compliance certifications each year, starting with SOC 2, PCI, ISO, and more industry specific certifications. So somebody come from third party, come and verify them. They have basic compliance hygiene. They have security requirements to meet to get the certifications. But unfortunately, they also had gone through data breaches. So this is one data point. The second data point is this particular company, Surfshark, has been collecting data breach data since 2004. And the number you see is 16 billion data records have been breached. So this is only PII. This is not even counting PCI, PMI, PHI, or CMMC, CUI, not other data. So what it means is we always have a risk. It doesn't matter how big company is, there is always inherent risk of losing data. And it could be an organization mistake. It may not be organization mistake. Sometimes a new technology comes in. It comes with a set of vulnerabilities before it gets stabilized. So irrespective of multiple security layers we build, irrespective of we spend money on having security teams, irrespective of we go through compliance, still there is a risk for data. So what it means is to all of us is we need to be prepared. Okay, this slide has a star, so please pay attention. before you understand the section 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever I'm going to bring it up, I will start with you. You need to know what data you have. Do you have, obviously, most of the organizations have PII. Then do you have health data? Do you have PCI data? Do you have any DOD, CMMC data? Do you have any top secret data? So you need to know all different data types you need to have. Then your brain will help you to see how you prepare for data breach. There may not be data breach, fortunately, but you need to be prepared. So on the left one you already know. The middle section, data systems. Previously we used to have data only in databases, RDBMS, but with last 12 years, data systems data have been in flat files, data have been in different types of cloud storage, and data in different vendors, the cloud vendors. And also, when we try to understand how to be prepared for data breach, we need to know data residency. You need to know where your data is. You need to know which region you are storing. And there was a good paper from usitcommerce.gov. It talks about the data centers in NATO governed NATO countries and data centers in OECD countries. So these two put together have some level of protection for your data. So the NATO countries and OECD countries put together have only 3/4 of the data centers fall in those countries, and 1/4 of the data centers in the globe fall outside of these countries. So you don't even have a legal way to, something happens, you don't even have a legal way to follow up on those data centers. So see, not only the AWS region, not only the provider, make sure those regions are in the countries you want to have some political power like NATO or OECD. Know your data systems. So again, I'm just preparing you. So once you find data, what data you have, please understand who has access to your systems, what kind of monitoring your company, your security team, your technology team have put in the data systems. There have been multiple different new technologies coming in, including one data-centric, the technology DSPM, Data Security Posture Management. This is a new one, but please understand where your data is, what data, who has access, and what monitoring your company tech force have put it in. Okay, now you know the data. Next, we need to know if there is some incident, who are the stakeholders in the game. So, so unfortunately, there is a data breach, right? Who could sue the organization? Again, I try to make easy for you to, I put it in the 3 categories, right? First, the leftmost, customers and individuals. There are direct customers who are paying you and you are serving them. Second, there are indirect customers like a data subject. Like Equifax collect data about you and me, but we are not directly paying in, like, unless we use their service, but they collect data about you and me. There are indirect subjects. Third is employees, and fourth category is the private law firms filing class action lawsuits on behalf of victims. It could be data subject, it could be a customer, but anyone. So these 4 categories fall in the leftmost. Second one is private institutions. So anyone in the supply chain serving part of the service, right? So before 10, 12 years, there were less number of players in the supply chain. But with all the digital transformation, to make one transaction to go through, whether it's a money moving transaction or a credit card transaction, or even you're buying the retail things from Macy's or Target transaction, there are multiple players involved. you will see some interesting data I'll provide. So those players could be, if they are impacted, they could sue the organization where data breach occurred. And the third important category is a big elephant in the room, the government. Who could be sued? So I'll start with the first one. So anyone providing IT security or cyber security service providers. For example, at the bottom line, if you see in 2013 when Target had a data breach, their PCI service, PCI auditor got included in the lawsuit as well by banks. Second, in 2020, when Marriott had data breach, their IT service provider, Accenture, was included in the lawsuit. So be aware of the players in the game. The second category is supply chain. We already talked about, I already talked about little here. The acquiring banks, payment processing vendors, all those starting from the network to end to make the payment, all the supply chain can get sued as well by the players within the supply chain. For example, when something happened at Home Depot, the banks suing some of the players in the supply chain. Same thing, the insurance companies, some of the insurance companies in the data breach, they sued and the organization and an organization sued the insurance companies back to get the payments. So the lawsuit could not only one way, it could go back and forth based on the the classes within the insurance, the policy. So for example, if you look at BEC, business email compromise, so some of the insurance policies have not included the coverage for BEC. Many of them now include phishing. Many of the insurance policies include ransomware protection, but not all of them include business email compromise attack and coverage. So when your company buys insurance policy, please pay attention. Otherwise, you end up spending time here going back and forth between you already have a bad day and then you have to deal with this as well. Where could sue? So this is also important. The reason it's important is first understand the court system, right? At the federal level, we have Supreme Court, and then you have 12 appeals or circuit court. So if you look at the map, there are 1 through 11, and then they fall in 94 districts. Then 11 plus DC, so 12 circuit courts. And please be aware that not every circuit court interprets the law correctly. Not correctly, consistently. That's a correct word. So some are lenient, some are not lenient. And also you need to see the history behind that circuit court before you decide to file or somebody decide to file a lawsuit within the circuit court. Also, it depends on jurisdiction. You may have an option to select circuit court. You may not have an option to select circuit court based on the jurisdiction. So, okay, now we saw the players. Next, let's see what are the regulations. So there are 10 different laws that directly or indirectly connected to data breach. Start with a data breach notification law. As of last year or so, there were 48 states, but this year, as of 21, there were 48 states, but as of 22, all 50 states plus DC have data breach notification law. And the second category is cybersecurity protection laws. So cybersecurity, there are 10 plus states have specific cybersecurity laws. The UCL, few states have. False Claim Acts also few states have. I have some samples, but you can go and complete later. There are privacy laws. There are at state level there are 6 privacy laws. So Connecticut, Colorado, California, Iowa, Virginia, and Utah. So there are 6 privacy state level laws active as of today. And Indiana is almost approved and it will go live in either this year or next year. Then there are federal sectoral privacy laws, around 40 of them. I have the slide incoming in the appendix, but what I mean is sectoral laws is you have healthcare specific laws like HIPAA and GINA, CalGINA, 21 Cure Act. Then there are educational laws. Then there's a financial specific laws. There are total 40 different regulations in the Fed level. Then there are consumer protection laws. Then UDAP. UDAP is a very important one. I'll go through that one. And on the right side, what you see is they are consumer protection and antitrust laws, but they are not directly data breach, but they have been heavily used in case of data breach lawsuits. What are the repeated causes cited in lawsuit? So in the previous slide, we understood there are 10 different laws, regulations could be used to file lawsuit in case of data breach. In this slide, what we're trying to understand is, out of all the lawsuits, out of all the regulations, what we talk about, what are the repeated causes used again and again and again to go after the companies by the government, by the private parties, by the customers, by the supply chain. So first and foremost, violation of its own policy and promise. So you have running a company and your security policy, your like mycompany.com/security policy says we protect customer data. We take customer data seriously. We have a lengthy statement. Please read it and then make sure you follow it. If you are a cybersecurity professional, please take it seriously and follow it. If you are a legal professional, please review your own publicly posted policy and review it, because that was the repeated cause mentioned in the lawsuit again and again. The second one is lack of fundamental cyber security. The third one is lack of reasonable security. For example, Equifax collecting all the sensitive data, they need to have a little higher level of cyber security hygiene compared to some other company collecting a public data like LinkedIn profile. We all post our own public data, but Equifax, TransUnion have higher sensitive data, so those companies should have higher level of protection. Okay, so on the right side, what you see is the financial institutions have brought multiple lawsuits against the retail companies or other companies that have went through data breach and not have reasonable protection. And these are the causes I found in multiple lawsuits. Laws by category, regulation by category. So I try to put a little bit more detail connecting to the previous 2 slides back. So this one is data breach notification law. I talked about all states have data breach notification law. Federal government has 4 direct data breach notification law. Other regulations are not directly related to data breach, but we'll go through that. But federal has 4 direct related to data breach laws. And the middle section you see is cyber security and data protection regulations. These are some examples I have listed. This is not comprehensive. For example, at the bottom of the slide, I will listed Florida one, New York one, New Hampshire one, and Ohio one. But this is not comprehensive. I have given this for examples. Biometric data protection law, there are 4 states, including New York, has biometric data protection laws. So I can add it in the appendix, but understand that that's another category we need to worry about if somebody collecting biometric data from the customers. The right column here you see is FTC Act. FTC Act is very important one, and we'll go through. I have one slide for that one. Okay, so Federal Trade Commission Act. This is one of the highly repeatedly used article, the Section 5, in multiple cases. In most of the big data breach cases, Section 5 was used to go after the companies where data breach occurred. So Section 5 talks about it prohibits unfair or deceptive acts or practices in, that affecting the commerce. So this is multiple time highly used against the in data breach lawsuits. The remaining sections, section 8, 13, and 19. So these come up when the company, they do not agree on section 5. FTC has ways to go after those companies using section 8, 13, and 19. And understand FTC rule was created in 1914, and it's continuously updated, number one. Number two, from FTC, there have been multiple child organizations connected to FTC, like CFFBB and few more. Even though there are multiple federal entities have been created, still FTC has a higher authority to go after these data breach companies. Standing to sue. So whenever there's a lawsuit in this, we need to understand whether the victim has a standing to sue the organization. And it's coded in Article 3, Section 2 of US Constitution. So what is standing, right? So whether victim has a legal case to go after the organization. They always look at, the court always look at three things: standing, causation, and harm. So harm, some of the courts understood or interpret as what has been caused so far, how much money the victim spent, how much time the victim spent. But some of the appeals court also looked at the harm that would be caused in future. If you look at this, I think appeal court 3 looked at the future harm and approved some of the legal cases against the organizations. So you need to understand how different appeal courts worked. Based on the history, they may interpret the regulations differently. Okay, this is just the data, another data point, how much, so some data is lost and how much is being sold in the dark web. This data is from Experian, and the range, what you see, some ranges vary from confirmed user identity to not so confirmed user identity. Okay, this is one of the recent important rule from CISA to govern and making sure the 19 sectors, 19 critical sectors in the US report any cybersecurity incident to CISA. That includes data breach as well. How to report, where to report, what's the timeline? This is the slide. So 72 hours, you need to report. The rule and the rule making still in progress. The rule making could take anywhere from 18 months to 42 months, but CISA already has given a template to report, and CISA and also the organization could share what could be shared with other companies. So they have an option to indicate that. I talked about direct data breach rules from the Fed. These are the four. The others are all indirect. These are the four direct data breach related regulations. 1996 and 2009, they both are related to healthcare one. And 1999, the GLBA came in. And 2022, we just talk about CIR, CIA. On the international side, everybody knows GDPR. That's a big one. And Article 33 and 34 talk about data breach and what to do. I have one slide for that one. So as part of any data breach, some organization need to know how to have prepared data breach a notification plan. So the basic template should include all these definitions. And we need to understand what these definitions are, because these are the definitions repeatedly mentioned from 50 different states, data breach notification laws, and some of the international one. So I'm going to go through some of the sample definitions in coming slides. The middle portion of this slide talks about what is the notification timeline, notification requirements, and some of the interesting thing I found is some state government requires multiple notifications, not only when the data breach occurred and you found, it's also when the customers notified and then they have few other milestones. It's not one-time notification, so please be aware that there are multiple milestones in notification to some of the states. Another thing interesting that I found is if there is 1,000 records or more, or 1,000 individuals are more impacted, the states have the mandate for the organizations to notify credit reporting agencies so that the victims don't have to, if there's a huge level of data breach, because the organization should report to credit reporting agencies. Okay, BNR. BNR stands for Breach Notification Rules. I'm listing, we'll go through a few sample definitions to understand the listing I made here. And they have some differences, but that's why I put some samples. First one, every state have defined, almost most of the states and the international organizations have defined what do they mean by personal data. And some states just talk about the first name, last name, address. Some states or international bodies talk about financial and healthcare, and some international countries, they talk about the religion and the labor union and political parties you are connected with. So it depends. But just high level, just understand based on your jurisdiction, what you're collecting, what you need to know, and what the law applicable to. Second one is preemption of compliance. This I read from few states. So what it means is a company already following certain federal level regulations related to data breach, then it means they are meeting some of the state level requirements. For example, the DC looking a company, if they're already following high-tech GLBA requirements, then the state assumes that the organization have met some of the data breach requirements. Preemption of compliance from California. If California just looking at high-tech and HIPAA, while the DC looked at the GLBA as well. Security breach definition. So I read some of the states, they were very simple, like data from the stored systems lost, it's a security breach. But some of the states have gone through a long definition. This one from Connecticut, if you read this, electronic files media, database, computerized data. So they go through multiple medium because with the technology, the data could be in multiple places. So some of the states have defined data breach definition in length. Risk harm analysis. So if some of the states have defined if there's no risk caused by this kind of data breach, then the they have some lenient in the notification and other process. Okay, this is the security breach definition from CFR 145. I mean CFR 45 on HIPAA. And the important thing here is HIPAA gives you a class that if risk assessment has been done and risk assessment concludes there is no harm, then there is the BNR requirement is not it's not fall under disclosure or breach. Okay. So now let's look at one sample international one, GDPR Article 33 and 34, right? 33 is defining what the requirement of data breach notification is, and it tells the within 72 hours, this needs to be reported. And for the data processor, it needs to be immediately they need to notify to the data controller. Okay, so in next 5 slides, I'm going to give you the tables you can build on. I have created the template, and it takes, I have books in the credits, and it takes 30 minutes or 20 minutes to build each table. I'm giving you a template you can go and build on, and please be aware this table may change next year and so on. So first one, I'm looking at a breach notification timeline. So this table I put together from immediately to 60 days, and you can I fill some of them, you can fill remaining based on your jurisdiction and what data you have, all those things. This is the substitute notice. So this table is very interesting one. So some say data breach occurred, and the organization have say 200,000 customers. Trying to connect them may be possible, may not be possible, or may be very expensive. So what governments have defined is if it's going to cost more than certain amount of dollars, you can have substitute notice. What it means is you can go and display the notice on your website, number one. Or you can contact your local state media and you can put a notice that this happened. So you don't have to reach all the customers. Number one, you may not even have the address of the customers. Customers might have moved. So this is where substitute notice comes. So there are alternate ways for the organizations to reach out to customers. Number of individuals. Interestingly, HIPAA is 500 records, right, between this and this slide. But many states I have read, they have the 250 records or person limit. If there's a violation or data breach occurred for 250 records or more, then the state data breach notification rule kicks in. So please be aware, it's not always 500, it's not always 1,000, it's many states have 250, so please be aware. Okay, I talked about this one, reporting to consumer reporting agencies. So some states require the organization to report to the Equifax, TransUnion, Experian, and any consumer reporting agencies if there is a certain threshold crossed. Ransomware reporting. I included this slide because many of the time when ransomware happens, and eventually, the data breach also occur, right? The bad actors trying to get your data many of the time through ransomware. So I included this information in the slide. And if any ransomware occurs, the organization have a legal requirement to report to FBI or CISA or top secret service, number one. Number two, the government does not encourage the organization to make payment for ransomware. But for some reason, the organization make the payment, they need to report to DOT, CISA. So please be aware of that. Okay, now we learned about the systems, the players, the regulations, and some of the cases. Now we need to have a template to have a plan, right? So I looked at the web and went through this. FTC has a very good template, and also at international level, the Australian Information Security Commissioner Office has a good template. Make look at them and see how you can make use of it, how you can customize to your own company. Okay, this is let's learn. I mean, let's look at some samples what happened, and we can learn from them. Okay, so this slide listing more than 20 companies. I mean, there's a long list, but I picked up the major ones. And the middle portion of the slide tells which government bodies went after these companies. On the right side, what you see is what regulations or laws used in the lawsuits against these companies. First, let's start with, okay, before we go to a sample, I'm just reminding what are the repeated causes we learned in section 3. So these were the repeated causes used again and again in multiple lawsuits. Now let's jump onto a sample. We'll start with Equifax, right? So Equifax, they didn't patch the Apache threats on time, and because of that, they went through a data breach. And there were 390 plus civil lawsuits, and companies spent more than $700 million, and 2+ years of distraction company faced. Now, the outcomes, before outcomes, there were multiple lawsuits by the government as well as the individual data subject, like the class action lawsuits. The outcomes, if you look at this one, the last one I would start with, this is where the company failed. Patch management was weak. And so the lawsuit asked, the outcome of the lawsuit is to reorganize the patch management team. The second one is conduct risk-based pen test. So if the organization having multiple publicly exposed endpoints and the data is connected to them, do the risk-based pen test. So that's an important one. And interestingly, with the California settlement with Equifax settling with California mandated apply zero trust principles wherever possible. That's an interesting one from the zero trust perspective. And the one you see in the red, minimize data collection. I'm not sure how Equifax or credit reporting agencies trying to implement that. They're all collecting as much data as possible, but that was written in the outcome of the lawsuit settlement. Next one, I'll go through Uber. So Uber went through a data breach. The bad actor was paid, and it was not disclosed. And after certain change in the leadership and management, after 1 year, Uber disclosed the data breach. And immediately all the 50 states jumped on to file the lawsuit. And the outcome is, the problem was there was a weak password, from the third party can get to the data. So outcome is what you see on the right side. They asked to have strong password and encrypt personal information wherever it's required. And important technically, if we are technical, the lawsuit outcome included incorporate privacy by design. That's a good thing about this. So next one, target data breach. So this happened in 2013. So HVAC third-party user had admin access control. From there, it got misused, and the bad actor had a multiple lateral navigation to get to the POS to plant a script to collect the data from the memory. So this high-level technical, right? Now coming to the data breach incident, there were 92 claims, multiple 92 class action lawsuits, and the company went through like 4 years of distraction. It even cost the job for CEO, and the outcomes is how monitor risk-based auditing of vendors. So that's the important one. So you have multiple vendors, but based on the vendors and what access they have, we need to have risk-based auditing and monitoring. So in terms of Zoom, they were claiming they were encrypting all the meetings data from what you and me talked over last 3 years, but actually they were not. So FTC found out and they went after Zoom to file the lawsuit. Okay, so far we learned some samples, we learned the regulations. Now the takeaways. So at the end of the day, we need to know the systems. We need to have appropriate security based on the data we collect, based on the risk, the data we collect. And please understand who is the data controller, who is the data processor, the whole ecosystem. The second one is understand the regulations and jurisdictions. So where your data is, what type of data you have, and how and what regulations they fall under. Understand them, and create a data breach incident response and notification plan. And I would recommend everything is now automation, right? Everything is highly becoming technical, and their data is exploding. So please try to see how it can be automated, how the technologies you already paying can be put to use to bring more visibility into the data management. The the um, the technology keeps changing. Application security, host security, network security, everything can be done, but data needs to be focused important, because data security start with data security, because all the thing application broken or data host broken or network broken, they all going to go after your data. So start with data security first and then go towards other one. These are the websites. I looked at a long list of websites on bugs, but this is at high level. I like to show this one. So this is very, very interesting one. So many of you work through Code of Federal Regulations. So this US government have put together 50 titles, and each title has its own important. And understand these, I highlighted some of them you may come across when you try to do a cyber security or data protection or compliance. And understand, take a look at these regulations and see how it's relevant to your job. It's a very useful one. For example, Title 45 is HIPAA, and Title 21 is about FDA, any clinical trials, any Tylenol or cancer or COVID medicine testing have to follow the regulations under Title 21. The banking 12 and the DOD, all those are 48 and 48, there's one more, 32. So try to understand, look at this map, help your brain to capture this, and then your brain will help to correlate things for you. The appeal codes I talked about, these are the 12, and there are 94 districts within the 12. These are the 40 plus sectoral laws I talked, and this not directly related to data breach notification, but having little bit understanding of this would help to fill the puzzles in your plan. So, for example, say you are collecting finance data, or you are a public company, you have a SOX compliance each year you need to do. So you need to have some level of knowledge into what financial regulations are, and online privacy. So if your company having online gaming or online services company, you need to understand few of the online privacy regulations. Thank you, everyone.